friend. Well, she is still my friend. And we were super close, pretty inseparable, and then she started dating. So I don't know if any of you have friends that started dating, but at least for me, I kind of was passed off once she started dating. So I kind of no longer was the one she hung out with, or we'd make plans, and then those plans wouldn't happen because her boyfriend would want to hang out instead. Or we'd be hanging out and then she would just leave because her boyfriend called to hang out instead. So that like hurts, right? Like, it hurts. I'm not going to deny the fact that that hurts. Well, Jesus tells us we should love them anyway, which isn't easy. I'm not here to say it's easy. And I'm actually still learning that for myself. So with that friend, we kind of just stopped talking, but now she's actually engaged. I don't know if I would assume none of your friends are engaged, but so now we're kind of like becoming friends again and exploring like what that means and kind of trying to fix that hurt from the past. So I'm learning myself along with you guys for this. So we're going to look in the Old Testament first and then the New Testament. And to give a little context, we're going to be in 1 Samuel. We're going to talk about David and Saul. So does anyone know anything about David and Saul? Maybe a little, yeah. Yeah, they are.
No.
That's a true fact. That's a true fact. So, oh yeah.
Right, so Saul was the king of Israel, right?
Yeah.
And he was of this like who was the son of what was the guy's name? Was Jesse, right? That's his name? I don't know. My father was just was going to die, right? You understand me? And David, of course, as you know, he had his life and all that, and eventually he grew, Saul.
Yeah, exactly. So Saul was the king, and David knew he was going to be the king next, just like Julian just said. Saul liked David at first, but then he became envious because David was like, well, I'm going to be the king next. So Saul was like, well, I'm the king now, and didn't like David. He was like, well, why are you talking about what's next when I'm the king? And then because of this envy, Saul tried to kill David so that Saul could stay king and not David. So we're going to read in 1 Samuel 24, 1 through 7, and it will be on the screen for you. It says, after Saul returned from pursuing the Philistines, he was told, David is in the desert of En-Gedi. Don't know if I said it right. So Saul took 3,000 able young men from all Israel and set out to look for David and his men near the crags of the wild goats. So Saul heard where David was and wanted to go find him so that he could kill him. Verse 3. He came to the sheep pen along the way, and a cave was there, and Saul went to relieve himself. David and his men were far back in the cave. The men said, This is the day the Lord spoke, and when he said to you, I will give you your enemy into your hands for you to deal with as you wish. Then David crept up unnoticed and cut off a corner of Saul's robe. So David and his people are hiding in this cave that Saul goes in because he has to use the bathroom. He does not know that David is in this cave. And so David's people are telling him like, oh, like this is it, this is your chance. He doesn't know we're in here. You should go kill him. So David goes without Saul knowing and just cuts a piece of his robe. So Saul doesn't feel it's just like a piece of his clothing, like a corner of my jacket, cuts it off. So then verse 5, afterward David was conscience-stricken for having cut off a corner of his robe. He said to his men, the Lord forbid that I should do such a thing to my master, the Lord's anointed, or laid my hands on him, for he is the anointed of the Lord. With these words, David sharply rebuked his men and did not allow them to attack Saul. And Saul left the cave and went his way. So after cutting the piece of the robe, David went back to his people and was like, yo, this was not cool. Like he felt like he shouldn't have done that. And he said, this is not what Jesus would do, is what he told his people. Like Jesus would not have cut Saul's robe and would not go to kill him, so he didn't. And so Saul has no idea that they were even in there and that happened. So in the moment, Jesus chose to love Saul when he could have hated Saul. So he knew Saul was out to kill him. And all he did was cut his robe and was like, this is not cool, this is not what I should have done, and chose to love Saul. When it would have been way easier to just hate him in that moment, he could have killed him. He wouldn't even have had any idea, but he didn't, because that's not what Jesus would do. And a real quick disclaimer, this is in a different time, so it's a different culture, different time of two powerful men who are like in charge of armies and all of that stuff, and are adults. And so, right, like in today's day and age, if you knew someone was going to kill you, like, you shouldn't just keep that to yourself. Like, I don't want you to take this and think, oh, this is what David did, so this is what I have to do. Like, if someone wants to harm you, you know someone's trying to harm you, or anything like that related to abuse or anything, tell someone you care about, Carol, Walt, Benj, M, myself, Mel, Matt, someone that cares for you, because we all care for you, like, tell us that. That's not something for you to have to feel like you have to deal with on your own based on this story, because that's not what I want you to take away from this. Yeah, so let's go over to the New Testament in Matthew. So Matthew chapter 5, verses 38 through 45 say, "You have heard that it was said, eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous." So, as you can see here in the New Testament, like all the other stories that we heard from Em and Curtis, and even before that, Jesus flipped the script of what you would typically expect someone to do. So kind of the first part of that passage says, like, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. So like, if someone punches you in the face, you should punch them back, is kind of how the world sees things. But then in the second half, Jesus flips that upside down, and not like, you shouldn't get your revenge in the way that they would expect. So one example is, say like someone came up here and just punched me in the face, they would expect me to get ready to punch them back, because that's like what you would expect. But what Jesus would do would be not to just punch them back. You would just kind of like stand there, and that would help them realize like they are the one in the wrong. Because if you don't punch them back, then it shows that it wasn't okay that they punched you first. I know that seems like a silly example, but it kind of helps just create a clear picture in that. And that's not saying like don't stand up for yourself, don't stand up for other people, don't seek justice. Like, that's not what that's saying. It's just saying that revenge is not the answer. You don't meet violence with violence. You don't do an eye for an eye or a tooth for a tooth. Instead, you love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. And that's not easy. I'm not standing up here to tell you, yeah, that's easy. Like, just do that. But Jesus would do that, and that's why we're learning from Jesus today. And so, the other thing is, Jesus isn't saying, like, when you turn the other cheek that you're supposed to just forget about it. Forgive and forget. That's not what he's saying. Instead, he's saying to strategically choose love instead of hatred, because love changes things. So it's not a matter of, okay, let me just pretend this didn't happen and just move on with it because I'm not supposed to do anything bad. It's mindfully knowing that you have to choose love, which is way harder than just trying to forget. But instead choosing to love that person despite what they did to you. And just being mindful of that and not trying to just get revenge, but know, hey, I need to love this person, not approving of their actions or approving of what they did, but loving the person like Jesus would love them. And those are two different things. And so there's a couple ways we can apply this to our life, and they're up on the screen. 1, forgive, and 2, pray. And so to forgive doesn't necessarily mean you're talking to the person. It can be a forgiveness in your heart too. So holding on to that bitterness ultimately only hurts yourself. And in Luke 23:34, it's not on the screen, when Jesus is on the cross and he's dying for us, he shouts, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they are doing." So if anyone had the complete justification to hate people, it would be Jesus, because he did nothing wrong. He got beaten and whipped and hung on a cross to die for nothing that he did. But and he had insults hurling at him, all those things. But instead of hating all those people, he loved them and shouted to God for us to forgive us, which is just crazy. And yeah, because if anyone had the right to hate people, it would be that. But he loved people and asked for forgiveness for us, on behalf of us. And I'm not saying forgiveness is something that, in a second you're like, oh yeah, I know I have to forgive, so I forgive and move on. Like, it's a journey, it's a process, and that's okay. And it's not supposed to be easy, and it's not supposed to be quick. Because you're not supposed to forgive and forget. You're supposed to forgive and then give it to Jesus, so that it's not weighing you down, so that you can continue to glorify Jesus with your life. And the second one is pray, which might seem like a typical church answer, but it's huge. It should always be like the first thing that we do, because we can't do anything without Jesus. And forgiving people, I know at least for me, loving people instead of hating them is really hard. And so you just have to continually pray for Jesus to help you do that, so that he can transform your heart and soften your heart for people, for the way he sees people, even though that's hard. And so I realized that was probably a lot shorter than I anticipated, but I feel like it's pretty plain and simple, and we're going to talk a lot about it in groups and dive deeper. But yeah, Jesus calls us to love those that we hate, even though that's super hard, or those that we dislike, or those we don't agree with, or those that just have hurt us. Like, we're supposed to still love those people the way Jesus did. And again, that doesn't mean you're not seeking justice, you're not still doing the right thing, you're not letting them walk all over you. You're just showing them Jesus' love rather than showing them revenge like they would expect, and probably what they're seeking for. And so I just want to encourage you with that today, and know that when it comes to bullying or abuse or harm like that, don't keep that hidden. You can glorify God through that by telling people that you know care for you. And so I don't want you to take anything we talked about, or even the verses of David and Saul, and think that you have to figure stuff out on your own, or that kind of stuff's okay, because that's not what these are saying. But we can still learn from Scripture.